Your soulmate's family has a special message for you, and the reason they want you to hear it has everything to do with something your soulmate recently discovered about you by accident. My beloved child, don't skip. Stay till the end because something huge is waiting, and what began as one ordinary moment has quietly changed the way your soulmate sees you. They were not searching for a secret. You were not trying to impress anyone. There was no announcement, no performance, no moment where you stood in front of people and tried to prove what you could do. It happened naturally, almost so casually that you may not even remember it the same way they do. But your soulmate remembers. In fact, they have replayed that moment more times than you would ever guess. Something needed to be handled. Something small had gone wrong, or perhaps someone needed an answer, a solution, an idea, a calm voice, or a different way of seeing what everyone else was overlooking. And without making a scene, you simply stepped in. Your mind connected something quickly. Your instinct seemed to know where to go. Maybe your hands created something. Maybe your words made a complicated situation suddenly understandable. Maybe you noticed one tiny detail everyone else had missed. Whatever it was, you did it so naturally that you treated the moment like nothing unusual had happened. But your soulmate did not. They went quiet. Not because they were disappointed. Not because something bothered them. They went quiet because suddenly they were looking at you as if they had discovered a door in a familiar house that they somehow had never noticed before. Their first thought was simple. How did I never know they could do that? Then came another thought. How much more about them have I never truly seen? And that question has not left them. At first, your soulmate tried to convince themselves they were making too much of one moment. Maybe it was luck. Maybe you had simply been in the right place at the right time. Maybe anyone could have done what you did. But the more they thought about it, the less believable that explanation became. Because suddenly an older memory returned. They remembered another time when everyone around you had been confused about something, but you had understood it almost immediately. You did not brag. You did not announce that you knew better. You simply offered an observation, quietly and almost casually, and somehow it was exactly the detail that changed everything. At the time, your soulmate thought, that was clever. Now they are thinking, that was not random. Then another memory came back. A conversation where you understood what someone was feeling before they explained it. A moment where you noticed tension in a room before anyone else acknowledged it. A situation where you somehow knew what needed to be said and, perhaps more importantly, what did not need to be said. Again, your soulmate once thought it was coincidence. Now it looks like instinct. And here is where everything begins changing, because the talent your soulmate accidentally noticed is not appearing as one isolated ability anymore. It is beginning to look like a pattern. They are realizing that there has always been something about the way your mind works, the way you observe, the way you create, the way you respond under pressure, or the way you make difficult things seem strangely manageable. They had seen fragments before, but they never understood what those fragments meant. Until now. And the person who may understand at least is you. That is the part your soulmate cannot stop thinking about. Because in the moment when they looked at you with amazement, you did not react like someone who believed they had done something extraordinary. You kept going. You changed the subject. You returned to whatever you had been doing. Maybe you even said something like, "It wasn't a big deal," or behaved as though anyone could have done it. Your soulmate remembers watching you move on with your day while their mind remained stuck on what they had just witnessed. How could you think that was ordinary? That question began following them. And eventually, something happened that pulled their family into the story. Your soulmate mentioned the moment. Not dramatically. Not as some huge announcement. It may have started during a normal family conversation when your name came up. Perhaps someone asked how you were doing. Perhaps your soulmate casually described what had happened. But the moment they explained what they saw, someone in their family became interested. They asked a question. Wait. They did that? Your soulmate said yes. Then the conversation became different. Another person remembered something about you. Someone in the family recalled a moment you had probably forgotten completely. Maybe you solved something for them once. Maybe you noticed something thoughtful. Maybe you offered an idea that stayed with them. Maybe you handled an awkward situation with a level of calm they did not expect. And suddenly, your soulmate was not the only person connecting pieces. This is why their family now has something they want you to know. But stay with this, because the message is not what you might expect. It is not simply, "We like you." It goes deeper. Your soulmate's family has begun realizing that there are qualities inside you that you rarely advertise. And strangely, your refusal to advertise them is exactly what has impressed them. They have known people who constantly explain how talented they are. People who want every accomplishment noticed. People who need attention before they feel valuable. Then there is you. Ability without announcement. Confidence without needing to dominate. Depth without demanding that everyone recognize it. A gift that appears only when the moment calls for it. And your soulmate's family has noticed the same thing your soulmate is only now beginning to fully understand. You do not seem to perform your strengths. You simply live with them. My beloved child, this is where the story becomes more personal, because your soulmate originally thought the surprising part was what you could do. But now they are realizing the bigger revelation is how you became the kind of person who can do it. They have started wondering about the experiences you rarely talk about. What taught you to stay calm when other people panic? What taught you to notice things others overlook? Why do you learn certain things so quickly? Where did that instinct come from? How many times in your life did you have to figure things out without anyone showing you? How much have you learned simply by watching, listening, failing, adjusting, and trying again? Your hidden ability has started becoming a window into your story. And the more your soulmate thinks about that, the more fascinated they become. There was a time when they thought they understood your personality fairly well. They knew your habits. They knew the way you talked when you were comfortable. They knew the expressions on your face when something bothered you. They knew what could make you laugh, what made you withdraw, what subjects made you suddenly more interested. But now they are watching you differently. Your pauses mean something different. Your observations stand out more. When you suddenly become focused, they notice. When you solve something without asking for help, they notice. When your instinct tells you something before the facts become obvious, they notice. When you create, organize, explain, repair, understand, remember, or connect things in a way that feels effortless, they notice. And every time it happens, one thought returns. What else is inside this person that I still haven't discovered? That thought has created a new kind of attraction. Not attraction based only on appearance. Not attraction based only on romance. It is fascination. The feeling that someone you thought you knew has far more depth than you realized. And here is the strange part, the discovery has not made your soulmate feel farther away from you. It has made them want to know you more closely. They are becoming interested in the things you barely mention. The projects you abandoned. The ideas you never shared. The things you once enjoyed doing before life became busy. The skills you taught yourself because you needed them. The compliments you dismissed because you thought people were simply being nice. Your soulmate is beginning to suspect that some of the qualities you consider ordinary may actually be the strongest clues to what makes you different. But there is another layer. Your soulmates started asking themselves why you never told them. Why did you never say, "I'm actually really good at this"? Why did you never reveal this side of yourself more clearly? For a little while, the question confused them. Was it insecurity? Were you hiding something? Did you not trust them enough to show them? But eventually they understood something much simpler. You were not hiding it. You just did not think it required an announcement. And when that realization landed, their respect for you deepened. Because there is something powerful about watching a person do something remarkable while believing they are simply doing what needs to be done. Your soulmate's family understood this too. Someone in that family apparently said something that stayed with your soulmate. They may have said, in their own way, that the most interesting people are often the ones who do not know how interesting they are. That sentence hit your soulmate differently because it sounded like you. The more they remembered, the more examples appeared. An old problem they thought you solved through luck now looks like quick intelligence. A moment when you read a situation correctly now looks like perception. A creative idea they thought came from nowhere now looks like instinct. A calm decision now looks like discipline. A small achievement now looks like evidence. The puzzle pieces are changing shape because your soulmate finally understands what picture they belong to. But the strangest part is still ahead. Your soulmate has started thinking about your future. Not in an unrealistic way. They are not imagining that one hidden ability guarantees fame, money, or some perfect life. What they are seeing is more believable than that. Potential. The possibility that if you ever took seriously the thing you currently dismiss, it could open parts of your life you have never explored. They wonder what would happen if you gave that ability more time. What if you practiced it instead of calling it nothing? What if you stopped assuming everyone could do what comes naturally to you? What if you built something around it? What if the quality that has always helped you quietly could become something you finally recognize consciously? That possibility excites your soulmate more than they expected. Because when they watched you in that accidental moment, something about you changed. You became more focused. More present. Your hesitation disappeared. Your movements became certain. Your voice became clearer. You stopped wondering whether you were doing things correctly and simply trusted your instincts. For a few minutes, you looked completely at home inside yourself. Your soulmate noticed that. And now one question is becoming impossible for them to ignore. Did they discover something you are good at? Or did they discover the place where you become most fully yourself? That question changed the emotional meaning of the entire moment. Because your soulmate is no longer simply impressed. They are moved. They are thinking about how many times you may have underestimated yourself. How many things have you called ordinary simply because they have always come naturally? How many parts of yourself have you never explored because nobody ever stopped long enough to say, "Do you realize what you just did?" And that is where their family's message becomes important. Your soulmate told them more. They described the way you brushed the moment aside. The way you continued without waiting for praise. The way you seemed almost confused that anyone found it impressive. And someone in that family said what your soulmate had been thinking. They need to know. Not because they want to flatter you. Not because they want to put pressure on you. They want you to know because sometimes another person notices our strengths before we understand them ourselves. Their message is this. Do not assume that what comes naturally to you has no value simply because it comes naturally. There are qualities in you people have been noticing quietly. There are ways you think, respond, create, understand, notice, solve, or communicate that leave stronger impressions than you realize. And the person closest to this discovery is your soulmate. Your soulmate wishes you could have seen their face in that first moment. They wish you could understand how suddenly their view of you expanded. Because for them, it felt like finding a secret room inside someone they already cared about. Everything familiar was still there. You were still you. But there was more space inside you than they knew. More history. More intelligence. More instinct. More possibility. More unfinished chapters. And what affected them most was realizing that this deeper side was not newly created. It had always been there. They simply had not been looking closely enough. My beloved child, your soulmate thought they had discovered a hidden talent. What they actually discovered was another dimension of you. That distinction matters. Because a talent can impress someone for a moment. But character changes the way they see you permanently. What impressed your soulmate first was your ability. What stayed with them was your humility. What fascinated them was your focus. What earned their respect was how naturally you carried the ability without demanding recognition. And what moved them emotionally was realizing that you may not see yourself the way they are beginning to see you. Since that discovery, your soulmate has started paying attention to ordinary moments they once would have ignored. They listen more carefully when you explain something. They watch what happens when you encounter a problem. They notice when your attention suddenly sharpens. They remember the things you say casually. And sometimes you make one small observation that sends them back into that same silence. There it is again. Another clue. Another piece of you they almost missed. Their family has started seeing this change in them too. They can tell your soulmate speaks about you differently now. There is more respect in their voice. More curiosity. More certainty that they have not finished discovering who you are. And perhaps that is the most beautiful part of their special message. They do not believe knowing you should mean reaching a point where nothing about you can surprise them anymore. They are beginning to understand that real closeness may mean continuing to discover someone. To realize that the person sitting in front of you carries stories you have not heard, abilities you have not witnessed, dreams they have never voiced, and strengths they have never named. Your soulmate is beginning to want that kind of closeness with you. Not the kind where they place you on a pedestal. The kind where they pay attention. Where they ask better questions. Where they notice the quiet things. Where they encourage what is real instead of inventing fantasies about who you should become. And this is important, because your soulmate's admiration does not depend on you turning this ability into something huge. They are not waiting for you to prove anything. Their feelings changed before you accomplished anything new. They were changed simply by seeing you more clearly. That is why this discovery matters. It was never really about success. It was about recognition. For perhaps the first time, your soulmate recognized that there are pieces of your identity even you may have treated as background. They see them moving toward the foreground now. And that creates a quiet hope inside them. They wonder what happens if you finally become curious about yourself too. What happens if the next time someone compliments that ability, you do not immediately dismiss it? What happens if you pause? What happens if you allow yourself to consider that maybe the thing you do so easily is not easy for everyone? What if you explore it? Not for applause. Not to prove your worth. Simply because it may be part of you that deserves more room. Your soulmate would love to witness that. They imagine the moment you finally begin recognizing what they saw. Not because they want to say, "I told you so." They want to see the expression on your face when you realize there may be more possibility in front of you than you once assumed. And there is something else they have not said aloud yet. The discovery made them proud of you. Not proud in a way that claims ownership over your ability. Proud because they witnessed something authentic. Something you did not manufacture for attention. Something that appeared because the moment called for it. They saw you at ease with a part of yourself you barely think about. And authenticity like that is difficult to forget. This is why an ordinary moment now feels extraordinary in their memory. You probably remember the day for a completely different reason. Maybe you barely remember it at all. But your soulmate remembers the silence afterward. They remember looking at you and realizing they needed to update everything they thought they knew. Not erase it. Expand it. You were not secretly a different person. You were more of the person who had always been there. That is the final truth behind the discovery. The accidental moment did not change you. It changed how clearly your soulmate could see you. And now their family wants you to understand something your soulmate may still be finding the courage to express. You are being noticed in ways you do not always notice yourself. Your quiet strengths leave evidence. Your natural abilities speak even when you do not. Your humility does not make those abilities smaller. And the parts of yourself you have normalized may still contain opportunities, interests, and possibilities you have never fully explored. Your soulmate's family does not need you to become someone else. Neither does your soulmate. They are simply beginning to see how much of you has yet to be understood. And perhaps that is why this message feels so personal. Because the talent was only the doorway. Beyond it, your soulmate found your patience. Your discipline. Your intelligence. Your instinct. Your ability to adapt. Your hidden confidence. Your unfinished potential. And most of all, the realization that there may always be another layer waiting behind the version of you everyone assumes they already know. So now your soulmate watches the ordinary moments differently. They notice when your eyes change because something has captured your attention. They notice when you quietly figure something out. They notice when everyone else is talking but you are observing. They notice the moment you stop overthinking and begin trusting what comes naturally. And every time they see another glimpse, that same question returns. What else have I not discovered yet? Your soulmate no longer believes the first moment was an accident in the way they once did. The discovery itself may have been accidental. But what it revealed was real. Something had been present all along, appearing in small moments, waiting for someone to finally connect the clues. Now those clues have been connected. And their family's special message to you is not that you need to prove your worth. It is simpler. Pay attention to what you keep calling ordinary. Because someone who cares deeply about you has already started seeing something there. Something real. Something worth understanding. And perhaps the biggest surprise is still ahead. Not because your soulmate is waiting for some dramatic transformation. But because they are wondering what happens when you finally see yourself with the same curiosity they now carry. What happens when you stop dismissing your natural gifts before you have even explored them? What happens when something you have treated as small is finally given space to grow? Your soulmate does not know the exact answer. Their family does not know either. And that uncertainty is what makes this feel like the beginning rather than the ending. Because the person they are discovering is still you. The same heart. The same voice. The same familiar presence. Only now they see more. And once someone truly sees another layer of you, it becomes difficult to go back to seeing you in the old, limited way. So remember the quiet moment at the center of all this. You were simply being yourself. You were not performing. You were not asking anyone to notice. And somewhere nearby, your soulmate was watching their understanding of you change. That may only have been the first discovery. And perhaps the next surprise will not be what else you can do. Perhaps it will be who you slowly become when you finally stop treating the most natural parts of yourself as if they were nothing special. Your soulmate is already wondering. And now, so is their family.